I had known the mother of my children, Marn Larson, for probably 12, 13 years before we got married. And she was a wonderful person. I mean, she really was, and I was crazy about her. And I remember our wedding pictures on the first night, well, the night of our wedding, and she had this beautiful blue and white dress on, and she just had jet black hair and black skin, dark skin, and she was, I thought, a person who we would be a great team. And I was 40 years old and been single for 10 years, and really been single all my life, basically. And she got pregnant on our honeymoon. So we had Tanner, 9 months later, and he was, while she was pregnant, we were at our lake place one night, and she started having pains, and she wasn't due with Tanner for quite a period of time, but so on the way back to Knoxville the next morning, we just went by the hospital just to have her checked, and they kept her. And the doctor told me she's fine, just go home, get some sleep, and come back the next morning. And so I did, and as I'm on my way, the nurse called and said, you need to come on, but there's no big hurry. And so I stopped and got a cup of coffee. And when I get there, Tanner's already born, and he was born at 32 weeks. He had to stay in, they moved him from St. Mary's to Children's Hospital, and he stayed there for a month until his lungs developed, and then for a year he was on a monitor, and then as soon as she came home, she got pregnant again, and Tate was born a year and 4 days after Tanner was born. So all of a sudden we had this family, and she really just did it all. I mean, and as far as she never really wanted kids, but once she had kids, she became this all-American mother, and which was wonderful. And of course, it allowed me to, I mean, I had to go practice law, and I was just starting my career in civil law at that point in time. And so it took us 5 years to make money. And what really happened, that was from 90 to 95. So I would have been about 47 when I was in 1995. And I was, I thought, in absolutely great shape. You know, I weighed 200 pounds. I lifted weights every day, every other day, and was much bigger than I am now. And ran. I was in really good shape, I thought. And I go, and the kids are, 4 and 5 years old, and I go to Wichita, Kansas to try an antitrust case, and I knew we were going to be there 5 or 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And in the middle of the trial, and at this point in time, I hadn't made any money. And in the middle of the trial, I had a massive heart attack. And so they rushed me to the hospital, and I guess 2 days later or whatever it was, because I don't remember it, but they did a quadruple bypass. So they call 911, the ambulance comes and gets me. And by this time I had contacted a cardiologist, I just hadn't met with him yet. So I'm in the emergency room at Fort Sanders, and I am eating nitroglycerin. And he comes in and he said, well, you're not having a heart attack. And about that time, I coded. They rushed me upstairs and got me stabilized. And what had happened, evidently, is the surgeon in Kansas had, I found out later, he'd left the operating room and let somebody else tie the graft, one of the grafts, and they tied it too tightly or wrong, whatever, and 2 weeks later it exploded. So the next thing I know, when he turned to the nurse and asked for the stent, they had run out of stents my size or whatever they needed, and I had to lay there for 30 minutes while they went to another hospital and borrowed a stent. But that was 1995, I mean, what, 21 years ago, and that stent is still working. And recently I had my arteries, every 2 years I make my heart doctor do a cath procedure, which is an invasive procedure, to make sure my arteries are open. And Dr. Brzee did one 2 years ago. And I've had one done in Louisville since then, but Dr. Brzee told me, he said, most people don't listen to what I say when I operate on them the first time. And he said, you're a person who changed his entire diet. And so between 1995 and 2010, I really didn't have any problems, except as a result of the last heart attack, I lost 20% of the pumping action of my heart. And what that causes over time is your heart has to work harder. And so now I have, my arteries are open, but I have an enlarged heart, and the pumping action of my heart has gone to about 33 or 34 as opposed to a normal heart, which is 50. So, but I've had stem cells to get it back to 34. It actually went to 25. And I'm on this new medication that I hope will get me back to 40, which is, I've operated really well at 40. I skied at 10,000 feet, and so that's sort of where I am. But it's something you live with every day. It's not, everybody's going to die of something. So, but that's one of the reasons I wanted to make this film, and I want my boys to know what a great life I've had and how much I love them. And so, with Martin and I think it just came down to the point that I told Martin one time, I said, look, when our kids grow up, I'm going to go out at night. And you can go with me, or you can stay at home. But I'm not sitting here the rest of my life and watching your dogs. And we just quit communicating, and you know, for a period of, during the divorce, I went through a divorce hearing and never spoke to her. In the 90s and through the early 2000s, until we got a divorce, everybody else, judges and other lawyers, set my schedule. So it was almost impossible for me to take a long vacation. Martin took the kids and went to Africa one time, but I couldn't go. I really couldn't go. It would have been a great time to go. One, I didn't want to go to Africa, but I had no desire to be on a plane that long. But Martin wanted to go, and that's what she did. And she's always had a mind of her own, and therein lies part of the problem that we had. But I think, you know, I think that once a couple, and looking back on it and not holding anything back, I think once a couple quits kissing and touching and being intimate, you know, the ball game's pretty much over. And that's what happened to us. And it was a good thing to get a divorce. The only wrong thing I did in that is I should have stayed until my boys got out of high school. And I really regret that, because they were with her during all 4 years of their high school, and I missed literally all of that. Now Tanner would come and stay with me, but Tate really never would. That's really the only regret I have. But we made up, and we put all that behind us, and we're great friends. And when I got sick in 2010 again, she was there for me, stayed through major heart surgery, took me into her house. And I knew then that she would have taken me back as bad as I am, and I am. I mean, when it comes to women, I always have been, and probably always will be. That's just the way it is. And she would have taken me back, and she would have been very happy for me to have stayed there with her and her dogs. But I knew if I did that, I would die. And if nothing else, I would have been bored to death.